I'd like to welcome you all to the formal meeting of the Salt Lake City Council for Tuesday, April 3rd, 2018. We are fortunate enough to have with us today a number of visitors who are going to help us with our Pledge of Allegiance. They're the Brownie Scouts, Troop 377 from District 5. Michelle McCardell is the coordinator, along with Melanie Jensen, Amy Taylor, and Carissa Monroy. I'll turn the time over now to the Brownies to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance and our flag ceremony.
Okay, guys, ready?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Okay, great work, girls, but you guys aren't done yet. So what we now need you to do is come up to the podium right here. So walk over here. And you can each take a turn and tell us your name and what school you go to.
My name is Astrid Nicole Jensen, and I go to Emerson. My name is Felicity Fleming Euro, and I go to Highland Park. My name is Hazel Elliott Mills Jennings, and I go to Emerson Elementary. My name is Sherry Rose Shaver, and I go to the open classroom. My name is Emerson Grace McCardle, and I go to open classroom. My name is Isabel Monroy, and I go to Emerson. My name is Maureen Elizabeth Aldrich, and I go to Emerson Elementary. My name is Sylvie Peterson, and I go to Uinta Elementary. My name is Eliza Hadley Ryan, and I go to Uinta Elementary. My name is Emery Pam Thompson, and I go to Emerson Elementary.
Thanks. Okay, thank you all. And girls, I can say this because my little girl's not here. And even though I think of my little girl being the same age that you all are, she's a senior in high school this year. And she was so much fun when she was your age. She's still fun, but you guys are great. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we do have quite a bit on our agenda tonight. We have a number of public hearings, as well as the open comments to the mayor and the city council, and some work that we will be doing. So I do want to go over some of the rules that we do have here. We want to make sure that the environment here is open, friendly, and comfortable. So what we mean by that is if somebody is speaking, we ask the rest of you to join us in listening to what the speaker has to say. We'd encourage you not to boo or cheer or have any sort of outward vocal either support or opposition to what is being said. Just listen politely to what people are saying, and let's make sure that this is a courteous environment for everyone who is joining us. We also ask that you do not stand on furniture. I don't think that that's going to be too much of an issue for any of you tonight, but we have had in the past where people stand on furniture and leaning against the portrait of Brigham Young back there, so please try not to do that either. At this point, I'll look to the council and my colleagues for someone to make a motion regarding the work session meeting minutes of Tuesday, March 6, 2018, and the formal meeting minutes of Tuesday, March 20th, 2018.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, motion for approval by Councilmember Mendenhall, second by Councilmember Johnston. Any discussion to this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously, and the minutes are approved. We'll now turn the time over to our Youth City Government to present the Youth State of the City Address.
Hi, thank you Salt Lake City Council members and Mayor Jackie Biskupski for providing Youth City Government with the opportunity to speak today. My name is Gregoria Alegria, and I am a senior at East High School. I'm glad to be here to present our annual Youth State of the City. Before I start, I would like to give special thanks to our advisors, Angela Romero, Damien Troy, I'm Amy Laura, and all of our members of Youth City Government and Division of Youth and Family Programs and Department of Public Services. Youth City Government provides the education, problem-solving experience, and the social arena for Salt Lake City High School students. Youth City Government develops and promotes an understanding of local, state, national, and international concerns, research, study, and debate on public issues, interactions with adults and youth leaders involved in the decision-making process, an understanding of political systems, and the forum they provide for effective and peaceful resolutions of issues and concerns. We also appreciate the diversity of viewpoints in public issues and concurrent respect for ideas, beliefs, and positions of others. Demonstration of citizenship, responsibilities, and leadership roles essential to the health and participatory democracy. Youth City Government students collaborated with Dr. Daniel Espinosa, postdoctoral research associate with the University of Utah, Department of Atmospheric Science, and other community partners to host 2 environmental justice events at the Glendale Branch Library, Just Breathe and Environment Plus You. These events were designed to inform the public about short and long-term solutions to improve our environment and individual, family, and public health. These events provided me with an opportunity to get involved in my local community, as well as help me understand how pollution affects me, my siblings, my neighborhood, and my city's health. I have been able to engage myself in improving the Glendale area and getting my school involved in addressing issues such as air, water, sound, and lighting pollution, which disproportionately impacts West Side neighborhoods, communities of color, and working poor communities. Through engagement with programs like Environment Plus You and Breathe Clean festivals, I have been able to use my heritage and my language. I am one of the few Youth City Government members that is fluent in Spanish. At both events, I was able to assist Spanish-speaking attendees by communicating and translating for those who needed vaccines, blood pressure testing, and further information on how to create a more energy-efficient home so they could save money, energy, and time. Youth City Government has provided us with the opportunity to talk with various guest speakers from Salt Lake City Sustainability Office, Dr. Mendoza, Representative Chavez, Planned Parenthood, and elected officials from across the state. One speaker that stood out to me was Gabriel Estrada. He discussed how he transformed his life from living on the streets to self-sufficiency. He provided us with a better understanding of why many people experience homelessness. We will not be able to solve this issue overnight, but I appreciate all the city is doing to tackle this community crisis. Youth City Government members also teamed up with Planned Parenthood's Teen Council, and participated in Teen Lobbying Day training and attended Teen Lobbying Day on the Hill. Teen Lobbying Day empowered me as a Utah high school student and resident. I was able to meet with members of the Utah State Legislature and exercise my civic duty to speak up, to use my voice, and to comprehend why things and why bills were being passed. This experience also provided me with the resource and skills needed to encourage my friends, my classmates to get involved and to use our voices and to vote. If we truly want to see change, we have to speak up and push for change. Youth City Government has helped me evolve as a student, as a member of my community. Youth City Government members have also been involved in many rigorous community service programs, and the members and I have learned about our own personal biases that have been implemented on us personally from others. We've learned about the struggles members of our community face because of their race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, economic status, family status, or religion. Through these different voices, perspectives, and experiences, we as members of Youth City Government and the Salt Lake City community have been able to evolve our own opinions and knowledge regarding our state's air quality, why people experience homelessness, social justice issues, implicit biases and stereotypes, the need for high school sex education, and most currently, gun control. Personally, for me, Angela and Damien have encouraged me not only to pursue my goals, but to create new ones. They have encouraged me to speak up about issues I want heard and problems I want dealt with. Through Youth City Government, I have been able to share my interests as to why people experience homelessness, not only in Utah, but nationally. I have been able to use my previous knowledge of teen homelessness, which I have gained through volunteering in the Volunteers of America Youth Resource Center, which also sadly leaves out a whole generation of kids from also having access to these resources. I have gained personal confidence and leadership skills, to which I now use in school with my friends, and I help them acknowledge that they too can use their voices for positive use. I get informed and encourage my friends and classmates about opportunities to get involved in our community, in politics, and to get informed about the bills and policies that are being created, because it is our generation, my generation, and future generations that will be benefited or will be harmed by the decisions that each and every one of you here in this room will make in the future. Thanks to Representative Angela Romero for leading this team and for giving us all the opportunity to speak our opinions, whether it's welcomed or not, and for always encouraging to look at both sides of the story and the spectrum. Thank you, and muchas gracias for those reasons. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Gracie Shirley. I'm a senior at Highland High School, and I'm excited to be here. I'd like to thank Angela Romero, Damien Choi, and Amy Lorette for the amazing opportunities that they have provided us this year, for the ways they have supported us and helped us learn and grow. It has been a great year. This is a big deal for me to stand in front of you today. As a high schooler, it is not often that I receive long periods of time to talk and to have my opinions and views listened to and respected by senior members of society. I've grown up feeling my voice is not as important as others because of my age. Youth City Government has changed my previous feelings completely. Youth City Government has helped me plant my feet and realize that I am part of the future. I, as an individual, as a group, and as part of this community, can create change, and that my voice matters. After the Parkland shooting in Florida, many teens stood up and said, things must change. As a 17-year-old, only 2 months away from adulthood, I've been able to take matters into my own hands and discuss issues that need to be solved and how to solve them. I've been given the power to stand on my own confidently and concretely and say change is needed, and then go and do. As Gregoria mentioned in her speech, we chose gun violence as an issue of discussion alongside air quality, homelessness, and education reform. This last month, I joined a group of teens from my school to organize walkouts for gun control. The first one, which occurred March 14th, was to stand in solidarity with the students in Florida, and the next walkout is to move our local government to acknowledge us and make policy change. Expect to hear from your community's youth this month. I hope you will listen. I know that I wouldn't have stepped up to organize these movements if I had not been motivated by the awesome people I meet with every Wednesday in Youth City Government. As a group, we also participated in a teen lobbying day organized by Planned Parenthood Teen Council. We met teens who provide accurate sexual health information that is prohibited from being taught by health teachers at school to teens in Utah cities. At Teen Lobbying Day, we learned how to lobby, learned more about education reform, and about how our state government works. Youth City Government has given us opportunities to participate in rallies, protests, service, meet people in power, discuss community issues, and has opened our eyes to issues deep within us and how to solve them. We have focused on bias and stereotypes and how to get rid of them. Stereotypes run deep and affect the ways we see people sometimes. We cannot create change for the community as a whole if we leave even one human out because of their gender, race, religion, political party, social class, or sexual orientation. As a group, we have discussed how to be accepting of all and to get rid of our personal stereotypes so that we can create positive change in our community, especially focusing on those who experience homelessness. All members of our community should be accepted no matter the circumstances they are living in. As a group, we have read personal stories of those experiencing homelessness and met with a man who experienced homelessness and now has a job and family. As a group, we are planning on visiting a teen homeless shelter and finding ways to make a change within the part of our community that experiences homelessness. Youth City Government has some amazing youth that are passionate about the issues in our community and are motivated to be leaders and make change. Lily Thomas, a member of Youth City Government, said, and I quote, "I've learned to open up my mind to other people's ideas. I've learned that it's okay to disagree with other people's opinions and how to respectfully do so. I've learned teamwork and what it's like to be a leader for teenagers my age who believe very strongly in the things that I do. But most importantly, I found my voice to speak up for what I believe in," end quote. Which, and I'm speaking for our whole group when I say this, pretty much sums up what Youth City Government has taught us. I am so grateful to work and befriend these amazing people who have been an inspiration to me this year. Youth City Government has been a resource and a safe space for young people in Salt Lake City who are politically and civically minded and motivated. I highly encourage students in this program to continue making change and being leaders in our community. I encourage youth who have not yet joined organizations like Youth City Government to do so. I also encourage members of our local government to lend open ears to the youth of your city. We are the future of this city and country. We are also the now. Thank you.
So I want to thank Gregoria and Grace in particular, but I also want to thank all members of Youth City Government for the service that you provide, the involvement that you have in your city. This is your city, and I will speak for myself and the rest of the council that when you all speak up, we do listen. We really appreciate your willingness to organize and to speak out on issues that are not only of importance to you, but are of importance to the rest of us as well. So we thank you for your leadership. We thank you for your willingness to stand out. And please know that in Salt Lake City, your leaders do listen to you. We do appreciate what you have to say, and we're grateful for you. So thank you very much. At this point, we will move forward with our public hearings. We have a couple of public hearings tonight. The first is related to the Funding Our Future, the potential sales tax increase and general obligation bond. If you are interested in speaking to this issue but have not filled out a card, please do so. Fill out a white card. We have members of our staff who can hand you a card if you have not filled one out yet. What I will do is read two names at a time. The first person will come up. The next person will be ready to go so that we can have as many of you speak as are interested. So the first card is from Dr. Rainer Huck, followed by Bill Grimundson. And I should also say that each speaker has 2 minutes to speak and to make your point.
Thank you, members of the council and mayor, for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I'll have to severely truncate my comments because of the short time limit. My name is Dr. Rainer Huck. I've lived in Salt Lake City since the winter of 1949. I'm an immigrant, which I believe has given me a greater appreciation of the freedoms America once offered than many of the people who've never lived outside the country. We're here tonight to discuss a large tax increase to fund additional police. I'm told the ultimate goal is to have one officer per 500 residents. The number of police already in our streets is not only excessive, but it's frightening to me. With more police, we can imagine how many more entrapments we're going to have, such as the recent arrest of a hardworking Chinese woman at a massage parlor who was arrested for accommodating a policeman's request for sexual activity. I don't believe that we should be expending our valuable police resources for going after consenting adults' behavior at all. Another issue I want to address is the rules of engagement that have been given to the police, which are much more liberal than were afforded our troops in Afghanistan and Iraq. And it kind of turns every police officer into a wannabe James Bond Agent 007 with a license to kill. So now the situation is, with these rules of engagement, any police officer in the blink of an eye can make the decision to kill somebody, which is just so shocking to me. I don't think that we need any more tax increases. We certainly don't need more police. The overburdened taxpayers of Salt Lake City have more unmet needs than the government does. And I think we need to rearrange our priorities to shift spending away
Time.
from police and the rest industry and actually help the huge number of addicted youths and homeless people in Salt Lake City. Arrests and jails are not the answer to these problems that we face
Dr.
as a
Huck,
community.
if you could wrap up your comments.
Okay. I'm almost done. And we need to do a better job. It's as simple as this. When you vote for more taxes, you vote for more of a police state in this case.
Thank you, Dr. Huck.
you.
The next speaker is Bill Germunson, followed by Barbara Gallegos.
Thank you. That's a tough name to say, Germanson.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my name's Bill Germanson. I'm with the group
Okay,
Make Hunger
sorry.
Visible, and it's an anti-hunger project for Crossroads Urban Center. And my comments will be brief tonight because I think you're all aware of the housing crisis here in Salt Lake City. But we at Crossroads, we see that housing crisis up close and personal every day. That's why we wear these renter food t-shirts, because many of our clients have to make that difficult choice every day. Lady came to our food pantry last week named Anita, and just a little tiny medical problem led to her getting behind on rent. She ended up at our food pantry, and she told us that the rent here in Salt Lake City is way too high, and even $100 savings on her rent would make all the difference in the world. So I'm asking you to please use at least 5 or 10 million of your proposed ongoing sales tax increase to go to affordable housing, so that the youth that did the Pledge of Allegiance, those children will grow up in a city where everybody can afford housing. So thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Germanson. Barbara Gallegos, followed by Jenny Bowser.
Hello, I'd like to thank the mayor and the city council for the emails that I get from you. And I'm here to ask for you about housing. I at one time was homeless, and I got into a senior citizen apartment, and yet the rent there is very high for me. So it's either pay rent or go to food banks and get food for myself, even though I have a job. I know there's vouchers out there for homeless people. I live with people that pay no income or have a little income coming in, but they have to pay. And so with your tax money, I would like you to try to get more vouchers for the homeless people. I have gone and volunteered, like Labor Day weekend, to help feed the homeless people out there. I donate clothes. I'm also with the Urban Center with the food bank where they give out food. And so I've used their food bank at times, but if I want to move right now, I couldn't afford to move from where I'm at. I pay $820 a month plus storage. That's, now they're going to raise the rent up $50 more next month. So it's like I might have to find another part-time job just to make my bills and the rent. To move now, you have to have at least $3,000. First month's rent, deposit, and it's like $1,200 for one-bedroom apartment. So I'm grateful that I am where I am. And I think the mayor was there when opening for the Garden Taylor's apartments. So that's what I'd like you to do is help those people that are homeless, because I had been there at one time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gallegos. Jenny Bowser, followed by Bill Tibbetts.
Good evening. Thank you, council and mayor, for letting us come
share our views with you guys. My name is Jenny Bowser, and I'm with Courage House, Utah. And I just am not sure if you're all aware that there's a crisis of women being sexually exploited and trafficked here in the city. Hundreds upon hundreds of women and girls being sexually abused, raped, whether for money or for resources, just blocks from where we sit this evening. And I'm with an organization that will provide housing and treatment for the recovery of these women and girls. I just got done meeting with a friend of mine who's been a survivor of the industry, and she was forced into the life when she was 3 and first abused by family members and friends of family members. And this is the story of every single woman in the industry. It's not their own choice. The choice is made for them. They're trapped. It struck me when we made the Pledge of Allegiance and we talk about liberty and justice for all. And these girls don't have liberty. They aren't free to live as girls or as women or even just as people in society. They're trapped. They're enslaved by people that are supposed to be loving them in their own homes or in someone else's home. And I've been to so many meetings, and at every single meeting, the main thing that we're missing is housing, a safe place for them to just go and live and make steps forward. Housing is at every single meeting I attend, it's the one thing that they don't have access to. So just keep that in mind when you're making your decisions on where to put the funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowser. Bill Tibbetts, followed by Virginia Linford.
My name is Bill Tibbetts. I'm the Associate Director at Crossroads Urban Center and also the Director of our faith-based community, the Coalition of Religious Communities, which brings together people from over a dozen different faith traditions to talk about the concerns of low-income Utahns. I am here today to urge you that if you do move forward with the sales tax increase, you include significant funding for housing. I think right now there are thousands of households that live in the city that are spending over half their income on rent. These are low-income families, which means that they're close to the crisis point. Their income is being stretched in ways that are not sustainable, I think. At the same time, there are thousands of other households that are headed up by direct care workers who work with people with disabilities or seniors, techs who work at hospitals with us when we're sick, teachers, aides, or paraprofessionals who work with our kids in the schools. There are thousands of people who are working lower wage jobs who can't afford to live in our city. So they're working in our city, and they are having to move further and further away from their jobs because they can't afford to live in this city. And so I think this council and the mayor's office has proven this year that we actually are a city that's able to make a difference on this issue. Most of the state has given up, but not Salt Lake City. We're making significant progress. I think the work we're doing this year shows that if we make a commitment to working on this in an ongoing way, we'll be able to do it. And so I think it would be a shame if the amazing work we're doing this year were to halt. What we need to do is to come up with an ongoing funding source. The sales tax increase is a way to do that. So we would urge you to make sure that as you move forward, that a significant portion of the funding is dedicated to housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tibbetts. Virginia Linford, followed by Cristobal Villegas.
Good evening. My name is Virginia Linford, and I would just like to say I really appreciate all of the work you do as public servants and as leaders. I have 3 issues. The first one is air quality. The second one is public safety. And the third one is there a master plan that deals with all of these problems, that integrates all of these problems over 5 years or more? I didn't see that. Just some observations. I grew up in Salt Lake City. I moved to Los Angeles and marinated in smog. The symptoms were horrible. I couldn't breathe. When I blew my nose, I had black soot, lots of mucus, a lot of allergy symptoms, smog. I had an opportunity to work and travel in Europe. I drove on very angry autobahns where people I thought were out to kill each other. I returned 2 years ago to Salt Lake City to help care for my mother, who has dementia and is 91. I thought I had actually returned to Los Angeles. It was so smoggy here. I had all of the same symptoms that I had had when I lived in Los Angeles in the 60s and 70s. I thought I was in Germany on the angry Autobahns because the traffic on the Autobahns, the behavior on our freeways here was just absolutely absurd. And then I found out that Utah was the #1 worst drivers in the United States. So I have been suffering through the inversion like most people. I've tried to ask neighbors and friends, what would you improve? The #1 thing you would improve if you could. It was air quality. The people that drove on the freeways and drove a lot, the #1 thing was, let's get more policemen so that we can have people getting tickets. I have seen people run through red lights.
Time.
I have seen more accidents than any other place. And the air quality and the traffic and treatment of people, we tied as #1 for the most impolite state in the United States with Tennessee. So just in closing, I saw that the priority for air quality was a priority in 2014, but since then it hasn't been a priority. It's not in any of the other
Ms. Linford, if you
yearly
could wrap up your
plans.
comments.
And just in closing, we need more policemen. We've dropped from #1 worst to #3 because you hired more policemen. So that would be very helpful.
Thank you, Ms. Linford.
And why can't the policemen
Okay,
gather
Ms.
more
Linford,
revenue
your time's up.
to repair
Thank
the
you.
roads?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cristobal Villegas, followed by Dave Iltis.
Good evening. Thank you once again for allowing us to speak. My name is Cristobal. Thank you, council members, and thank you, Mayor, for being here. You all have done tremendous work. I really do appreciate, as being a resident out here for about 2.5 years, it's been really great improvement in many things. However, I am expressing some disappointment again. Back in 2017, I know y'all approved for 50 more police officers to be hired. However, on March 24th, certain public officials here marched in one of what's called March for Our Lives and regarding gun safety. Yet we want to put 50 more police officers with weapons on our streets in order to make sure that crime is sustained. For me, that juxtaposition of both the march and 50 more police officers, it runs contrary to what many public officials walked on that day. So although y'all have approved for 50 more police officers, I would ask, so although we are debating the funding of those 50 police officers, to consider the following as alternatives for those 50 police officers. Maybe requiring those 50 police officers to not carry guns in public. Maybe ensuring that although I spoke with a police officer, Josh Sherman, and he said, although the intent is to make sure we equally disperse police officers across the 23 communities, we all know that's not going to happen. He said intent. That was a word, and he also repeated it to me. So I would hopefully encourage that they're just not placed in where more crime and subsequently more people of non-white perspectives and outlooks are congregated. I would also recommend that maybe higher education is required for these police officers. It took me to have a bachelor's degree to work at the road home, yet it only takes a high school degree to be a police officer. In other words, carrying a gun in the public to make sure that I feel safe. I don't feel safe. Many people like me don't feel safe with that. When will that be enough, honestly? I know my time is up, and I'm sorry, but what they told me that the best way to know people's priorities is to look at the budget. We have $12 million going to public safety, yet we only have $5 million going to housing and $8 million going to transit. So I ask you, what really are your priorities and what aren't?
Thank you, Mr. Villegas. Dave Iltis, followed by Lisa Hazel.
Hi, my name's Dave Iltis. In general, I'm very supportive of the bond and also the sales tax increase, but I think the website that has been put out, this Funding Our Future, is not really very good. It's not very specific. It's not cohesive. It's sort of four cobbled together needs that are all valid, but it's a very cobbled together approach. I really would like to see a vision for this, for the funding that you're proposing that Salt Lake City residents contribute to. It's just this sort of cobbled together thing, and I want to see where we're going to have a better city, not just better streets. And, you know, for example, on the streets, we're talking about just street maintenance. You have no transportation master plan in place. You just passed a transit master plan, which is in there. You have a bike ped master plan, but the bike ped master plan isn't mentioned in this. It's only talking about rebuilding streets, not where we're going for transportation in Salt Lake City. And I don't think that's really acceptable to ask for, what is it, $70 million without having some kind of vision for this. And this is not reflected in the information given to the public. So another thing that couple years ago, the council promised and did not follow through to bring the recreation bond back. We could benefit greatly by having some amenities in this bond, such as funding the Foothill Trails, which is the master planning process is going on right now. That would be $2 to $3 million. It's one of the most requested things for Salt Lake City residents. You could tack that onto this fairly easily. But in general, I support this bond, but I think this is it's not ready for prime time. You guys need to go back and do your homework and come up with a cohesive vision on this. And so that we can see where this is all going. And lastly, in terms of housing, yes, affordable housing is wonderful, but if you would get a better parking requirement ordinance, rents would go down if you required less parking for housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iltis. Lisa Hazel, followed by Bob Barr. And if anyone else is interested in speaking, fill out a yellow card if you have not yet done so, and I will call you forward.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Hazel. I am very much for the bond as well. I do think that some of this money should be used to protect immigrants, specifically members of DACA and Dreamers. I don't know if that is possible, but I think there are a lot of productive members of DACA who are not getting protected by the federal government, and I think that could be something, if it's possible, to do with the bond. I also think, I'm also in agreement with, I don't remember his name, I'm in agreement that if you're going to hire more police officers, it would be best to have them be required to have education on how to effectively speak with the public, so that you are, and in that, combined with that, maybe require them to have a bachelor's degree so that they are, so that we trust them carrying guns and weapons. I also think that the part of the bond to make the streets better is good. I do think also, though, that biking, transit, I also think that skateboarding should be included. I don't skateboard, but I know people love it, and if they feel like they can skateboard on the street or on the sidewalk, I think that should be something to be considered for them, as well as considering pedestrians. And with affordable housing, I also think it's a good idea to from previous speakers, I do think that it is very important to have long-term housing, because I know reading in the Tribune, there's often people who have been in housing for 3 months and then they are sent out and they have to start all over again after 3 months, and that's not effective. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hazel. Bob Barr, followed by Bernie Hart.
Hello, my name is Bob Barr. I won't waste my time thanking you. I'll vote if that'll be effective. Many of the previous people spoke quite eloquently on some of the subjects, and I'm not going to cover those. I'm going to limit mine to a couple of subjects. The first one being, it has always been my opinion that it is never in the interest of government to represent its current constituents. Everybody wants growth because it's a whole lot easier to get taxes from growth than it is from your current constituents. So I'm in favor of the increase because I think it's going in the right direction. We need to get the people who do live here to pay the true cost of what it costs to live here. However, to waste millions and millions of dollars like the system has for 50 or 60 or 70 years on not doing the job properly isn't the way to go. I think you need to set up, for example, in the case of repairing the streets, a board staffed by, I personally know a former owner of Gibbons and Reed Construction. Has no axe to grind, but would be an excellent member of a board to help guide this. I know forensic accountants. I know many people, and I know this is something you all can deal with. I think you need to set up a system that isn't run in the same method that has been run in the past, and one that has real responsibility by a citizen board to oversee. My other issue, and another one that even here in the city we can address, we love to talk about growth. Every government entity loves to talk about growth.
Time.
We've grown enough. We have to start looking at ways to sustain what we have.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. Bernie Hart, followed by Fred Davis. Fred's is the last card that I have, so again, if anyone is interested in speaking, fill out a card. I don't. Okay, so we're still on the white cards right now. Then we'll get to the yellow. Thank you, Bernie.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Couple of things. There's so many good comments tonight that sort of mirror my philosophy, and that is that good programs sometimes decrease spending. If programs are effective, if they're good mental health programs, good addiction programs, good programs for dealing with the homeless, good programs for dealing with convicts, good programs for dealing with the economically disadvantaged. We don't need more housing. We need better housing. We need, because they're going to be upward mobile. The programs will change the dynamics of the situation, not more housing. You will need, like the gentleman suggested, if the programs are working, you'll need officers with no guns, because the mental health issues and the crime issues that the programs are dealing with will be effective in dealing with the core problem itself. We are dealing with the results of the problems, not the problems in what we're doing and what you're planning on how to spend money. Because if we don't do it the right way, those kids that spoke so eloquently tonight, when they become grandparents, they will be here asking the same thing, just like my father was before me. So I'm asking you to look at programs. And as far as the tax increase, triple it. I would like to see you free of what goes on at the state legislature. I would like to have the mayor and the city council have the ability to make decisions that are best for Salt Lake City without having to depend on the state legislator for funding. Ask for it. I think the people in the city will give it to you because they would like to see solutions to these problems. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. And Fred Davis is the final card.
Good evening. Mr. Hart just said almost what I was going to say in the first place. The homeless, it's a lot of talk was over here about the homeless and getting homes for the people. But it goes beyond that. You have to think about the homeless and their mental issues, because there's a lot of people on the street that have those issues. And I don't want to say too much because I'm going to go back and sit down. But is there any way that you could have some money to come to treat the mental issues of the homeless? Thank you.
Mr. Davis, thank you very much for your time. Seeing no further cards, I'll look to my colleagues for a motion.
I'll move that the council close this public hearing and refer to the next public hearing on April 17th.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Mendenhall, second by Councilmember Kitchen. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. I do want to state that there will be a couple of other public hearings. I think so there's the one on the 17th, so two other ones. One's the other date?
It's,
don't have it
if you're
right in front of
asking
me.
me, it's
Yes.
just
I'm
on the
asking
17th, but tomorrow there are two public workshops at Sorensen Unity Center.
Okay, so there will be another, so the next public hearing is on the 17th. Other workshops will be tomorrow at the Sorensen Community Center. I will be there. I know that some of my colleagues will be there as well to hear your thoughts on this. 11 and 4? Okay, thank you. 11 and 4 tomorrow at the Sorensen Community Center.
Charlie, may I
Yes.
have a moment of
Yes,
personal
personal
privilege to
privilege,
say
Madam Chair.
that on a week from today, on April 10th, while we won't be having a formal council meeting, we don't have one every Tuesday, we will be having a work session across the hall that we always do, and we'll be debating much more of this in the context of the spending if it happens. So you can always tune in on Channel 17 or come sit across the hall with us. That meeting is an RDA meeting at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, followed by the council work session closer to 4 o'clock. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Mendenhall. Our next public hearing is an ordinance regarding Yale Crest Douglas Park, local historic district designation on Hubbard Avenue. I have one card here from Penny Gregerson. Ms. Gregerson, are you here? Hi. Okay, and again, 2 minutes to speak, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Short of that, I hope. Thank you all for hearing me.
If you can pull the microphone down a little bit close. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am here in lieu of Marguerite Henderson, who began this proposal. She had a previous engagement and asked me to come and speak on behalf of the neighbors. And I thank you for listening to us. Seems less weighty than the other subjects that have come up, so I will make it brief. This proposed local historic application, the Yale Crest Douglas Part 1 LHD, contains 11 properties constructed primarily between 1916 and 1929. This short stretch of Hubbard Avenue between 15th East and Fairview consists of a diverse collection of historically contributing and/or significant architecture styles, including bungalow, English cottage, English Tudor, and colonial revival, with a high degree of physical integrity. Each is unique, one of the characteristics that make Yale Crest such an interesting and pleasant neighborhood in which to walk, and walk people do. We current property owners are seeking designation as the Yale Crest Douglas Park 1 Local Historic District because of our noted historically significant houses and the ever-increasing demolition of homes like ours throughout Yale Crest. We narrowly escaped losing a house on our street last spring when the seller refused an offer from a builder who has torn down many homes in the neighborhood. We want our houses to be protected for future stewards, owners, to enjoy as we have. We don't want them to be replaced with out-of-scale, oversized, overmassed new construction. This application seeking local historic district designation is the only current legal option to minimize those detrimental activities in our established, mature, and historic neighborhood.
Time.
Of 8 ballots submitted, 7 were in favor and only 1 opposed. The council should therefore find in favor of this designation.
Thank you, Ms. Gregerson. Is there anybody else who would like to speak to this public hearing? I will just state that the process that the neighbors followed is the process that has been laid out or laid forward by the city. The margin of participation was well within the requirements of designation. So I just wanted to bring that point for it. At this point, I'll look for a motion from council.
I move the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
Would the maker of the motion consider closing the public hearing and moving for approval tonight?
You made the motion.
I know. I'm just looking for body language cues for my copy. Yeah, why not? I move that we close the public hearing, suspend the rules, and adopt this ordinance tonight.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Kitchen, second by Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion to this item?
Have we had any written comments that I haven't seen? No?
Not that I'm
Nothing?
aware of.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Here's seeing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is another public hearing for an ordinance regarding Meadowlark Elementary School zoning map amendment. And I do not have any cards for this public hearing. Is anyone interested in speaking to this?
Mr. Chair,
Seeing none.
I move the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Motion by Councilmember Kitchen, second by Councilmember Mendenhall. Any discussion to this item? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. The fourth public hearing tonight is an ordinance regarding property clearing and weed control amendments. And I have one card here from Dave Iltis. If anyone else would like to speak to this item, please fill out an orange card from one of our staff members to the side. Mr. Iltis.
So you might wonder why I want to speak on this particular ordinance, but I looked through this ordinance. It's not particularly clear. It would be nice if it were a little more spelled out what was going on, like in particular listing the state noxious weeds on here, or listing, saying that you will list them on the website so that Salt Lake City's residents know what qualifies as a noxious weed and what doesn't. The other part of that is that Salt Lake City's residents need to be educated on the hazards of noxious weeds, you know, how they crowd out biodiversity, they crowd out native species. But the other part of this is, of course, puncture vine, goat heads, which are the worst enemy of bicyclists. And I worked a couple years ago with the state of Utah to get puncture vine added to the state noxious weed list, and with success. It was the first non-agricultural noxious weed added to the state list. They added a number of other ones as well during that year, and the ordinance really needs to address kind of a general, the whole discussion needs to be a little more general as to why getting rid of noxious weeds is really important. And I would be a little more specific in my comments. However, the Salt Lake City Council's website is still not working as far as being able to look at the agenda packets on a mobile device, which is what most people have when they come to these meetings. So you cannot look at, I can't download the agenda, or I can look at the first page of the agenda, but I can't download the packet, so I can't read the ordinance to address specific concerns on that. But I think you need to, you know, again, more generally address education and the list of noxious weeds through this. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iltis. Councilmember Mendenhall. Or wait, is there anybody else who would like to speak to this? Okay, seeing none, Councilmember Mendenhall.
I'll move the council continue this public hearing to a future council meeting.
Motion is to continue the public hearing to a future date. And there's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is continued. And let me explain, because I'm seeing some questions about why we're continuing it. There was apparently a state law change during this past legislative session. The city needs some time to go over that law and this ordinance to see if there are any other changes that need to take place. So hence the continuing of the public hearing instead of the closure of it. The next public hearing is item number 5. It's an ordinance, an amendment to Salt Lake City Consolidated Fee Schedule for Waste and Recycling Fees. And I see one card for this one from Lisa Hazel. If anybody else would like to speak to this, please let me know. Ms. Hazel.
Hello again. In regards to recycling and trash fees, I often go to several bookstores throughout Salt Lake City, one specifically being Barnes & Noble, and they are not able, because they don't have time, to go through the steps to get recycling bins in their bookstores. And I think if this changed, if you consolidated this and maybe required that every business have recycling bins, then Barnes & Noble would be required to go through and put them in their, well, in their foyer where you go and have coffee. And I also think that in terms of small businesses as well, if you're consolidating this fee into one, then it makes it easier for them to add that to their budget if that's something that they're just having a hard time being able to add to their budget. Then if it's consolidated, then they are then required to, and it's not difficult, it's just separating it into another bin in their business. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hazel. Anyone else interested in speaking to this item? Seeing none, look for a motion from the council.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt the legislative intent, or move that the council adopt the ordinance and adopt specific legislative intent requesting the administration evaluate special event costs, benefits, and options for supporting special events occurring within the city.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Wharton.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Kitchen. Any
Mr.
discussion to
Chair,
this item?
do we need to clarify the starting date?
Two things, actually. We have to have a motion to close the public hearing first, and then clarification on the effective date if you want to add the effective date.
So you can amend your motion just to close the public hearing and
Yes,
then add
I
this.
move to close the public hearing. And then also I would amend my motion that the effective date would be January 1st, 2019, but still have the administration evaluate the special event costs.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Wharton. Is Councilmember
My
Kitchen
second
okay with that
stands,
second?
yes.
The second does stand, okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Our next public hearing is an interlocal agreement, or it's regarding an interlocal agreement for county transportation funding towards the 9-Line Trail. And I have one card here from Dave Iltis. If there's anybody else who is interested in speaking to this item, please fill out a card and hand it to our staff.
My name's Dave Eltis. I'm with Cycling Utah. I'm speaking in favor of this. This is a wonderful addition to Salt Lake City, the 9-Line Trail. It's just the idea of being able to connect from more or less the zoo to the Jordan River Parkway is just, it's outstanding. And the fact that the county is willing to pay $500,000 towards this is wonderful. And I think, of course, you should accept their money, thankfully. One of the things, though, back on this subject of Puncture Vine, is that I participated in the Puncture Vine the Goat Head weed pull, and there were, in a relatively small area of the Jordan River Parkway and the 9-Line Trail, 880 pounds of this weed pulled and disposed of. In the field right next to the 9-Line Trail at 9th West, it was 2 feet high, which is unusual for Puncture Vine, and filling up the entire field. And Salt Lake, if you're spending money on this, you have to spend money on weed mitigation, because otherwise in the fall, when the Puncture Vine when the seeds germinate, or the seeds harden, you make this essentially unusable for a large portion of bicyclists that don't happen to have slime in their tubes. And so you have a family of 4 going out to ride something like this that gets 4 flats, has to go to the bike shop and costs them, 40, 50, 60 bucks. They're not going to want to do that again. And this is one of the really big problems with all the wonderful trails we have on the Wasatch Front, is that puncture vine is this horrid weed, and there's some attention paid to it in terms of design, but nowhere near enough. And if you're going to spend, 500,000 or millions on this, you need to have more money going into puncture vine mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iltis. I do have another card from Lisa Hazel.
Hello, Council and Mayor. I'm very much for the $500,000 you're interested in putting into this trail. I also think that it would be a good idea to consider using part of the bond money that you're considering into this as well, and making it longer, and maybe discussing if it can go up to the high school or across to Westminster. I think that this was previous discussion, and I think it would be a great addition to the neighborhood for people who are, and even if it could go both ways, maybe it could go up to high school, so younger people who just like came in earlier to speak, those people would be able to use it, and people who have decided to go and further their education once they decide to go to Westminster. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hazel. Anyone else interested in speaking to the interlocal agreement for county transportation funding towards the 9-Line Trail? Seeing none, look to a motion from the council.
Mr. Chair, I move the council close the public hearing and adopt a resolution authorizing approval of an interlocal with the county for a transfer of funds for the 9-Line Trail.
Motion by Councilmember Kitchen, second by Councilmember Mendenhall. Any discussion to this item?
Do we
Councilmember
need to
Johnston.
close the public hearing first?
We do.
I thought he said
Did
close
you
the
do,
public
I think he
hearing.
did. He
Say
did.
close public
He
hearing?
included it as part of it.
Okay.
I combined them.
Yeah.
Strike that from the record then.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes.
Take the money.
The next item, or our next public hearing, is an interlocal agreement regarding, or an amendment for locating the Salt Lake City Prosecutor's Office in the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office. And I do not see any cards for this one. Is there anybody interested in speaking? Seeing none, I look to the council for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close this public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Mendenhall, seconded by Councilmember Kitchen. Any discussion of this item? Councilmember Wharton.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would like the council to consider that previously Councilmember Fowler and I expressed some concerns about being able to undo this partnership if it doesn't serve the city's best interest in the future. In order to do that, I would encourage that we think about setting aside $500,000 in the budget into a restricted account so that could be used in the event that we do need to separate, and that it wouldn't be a substantial burden on the budget at that time.
Thank you for comments. Councilmember Wharton, any other comments? Hearing none, we'll go back to the Councilmember Fowler.
I would just say that I would agree with Councilmember Wharton on that as a way to somewhat address some of our concerns that we indicated that, at our work session regarding this interlocal.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I have a question.
Councilmember Mendenhall.
Can we expect to hear a proposal from you in a budget amendment or in the general fund discussion of the full budget?
Yeah.
Something. Okay.
Both of them, probably.
Okay.
Yeah. No, yes. I was thinking about it from the general fund. So,
In the context of the whole budget discussion,
well,
you don't have to know right
You
now.
don't need to know.
I'll
It
just-
seems like it would be more appropriate
know.
as part of the major, or the broader budget
yeah,
discussion.
I understand. So, that's more what I was thinking, along the lines of what I was thinking, but I'd be open to discussing when we come to that time, but I don't know that we need to because of the proximity to the budget discussions.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Great, thank you. Back to the motion. Hearing no further comment, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. The next public hearing is, wait. I thought we were going to go back to hearing about weeds again. No, but instead we're going to budget amendment number 4 for fiscal year 2017-2018. I do not have any cards for this item. Is there anybody interested in speaking to the budget amendment number 4 for fiscal year 2017-2018?
Mr. Chair,
Councilmember Kitchen.
I move the council close this public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Kitchen, second by Councilmember Johnston. Is that right? Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? That motion passes. We will now hear, the next public hearing will be heard as one public hearing. Item number 9 on the agenda and item number 10, grant application 2017 Fire Prevention and Safety Grant, as well as the grant application for the 2018 Healthy Out of School Time Grant. And I do not have any cards for this item.
Mr. Chair, I move the council close this public hearing and refer items.
Before I take your motion, Councilmember Mendenhall, is there anybody in the audience interested in speaking to this? Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
Back to Councilmember Mendenhall.
I move the council close the public hearing and refer items B9 and B10 to a future consent agenda for action.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Mendenhall, seconded by Councilmember Kitchen. Any discussion to this? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. We now move to the comments or the questions to the mayor from the city council. Do any of my colleagues have questions for Mayor Biskupski? Mayor Biskupski, thank you for being here tonight. And it doesn't look like we have any questions for you. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you, Mr. Litvak, also for being here. We now will go to the general comments to the city council. These would be on the yellow cards. If you have not filled a yellow card out, please do so. I will again read the names as I have them in order. The first is from Margaret Holloway, followed by Michael Clara.
Good evening. Just want to introduce myself to the people that don't know me, that I send in the comments to the council. Thought I'd put a face to the comments. I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you very much again for standing up to the state. We didn't make it, but we tried. You guys busted your tails that day. Really, really tried. I saw that meeting, and I'm glad you fixed the audio because I haven't been able to hear the audio for the last 4 times or 3 or 4 times. I've told James about it. I said I can't hear anything. So I'm glad you guys fixed it because I could hear it today at work. My boss works for the South Jordan City Council, so we get to talk about lots of stuff. But I'm here tonight because I want to talk about the RDA money that you are considering spending at the farmers market or the public market downtown. And I want you to please, please look at the Fair Park. You've got a whole section of the city that keeps being promised. You know, we trust you, we invest in you, but nothing really gets over there for businesses. If $31 million to build a public market downtown just to help the renters stay in those extremely expensive apartments, stay there. You've got a lot of people on the west side over in that area that don't speak English, that have a lot of ethnic differences, that I think would come to this and would use this, and it wouldn't cost $31 million. It just blows me away. You're enabling entrepreneurs to develop out of that. So it just depends upon what you're trying to get out of it. The RDA money is very, very limited, I would think, for this kind of project. And for them to be able to help people get their businesses going, it just depends upon what you want. If you want a pony show, the Pioneers Market, the Downtown Alliance says, well, we deserve this. And I said, well, I think the developers have gotten a lot of taxpayer credit from when the impact fees were gone for 3 years. They've gotten a lot of RDA
Time.
money. And I just, please, could you look at it? I put it on Nextdoor, and I've been getting a lot of people. They've told me they're writing to you on this issue. So I try and get people to speak up. Either way, just to speak up. So I hope it helps. But
Thank you, Ms.
anyways.
Holloway.
Thank
Michael
you.
Clara, followed by Lisa Hazel.
So, members of the council, I want to bring an issue to your attention that's, I was just recently learned, is not unique to me, but it has to do with participation in the public square. And what happened several months ago, my neighbor across the street, I live in Glendale, told me that the street sign on the corner was missing and that it affected one of her neighbors' ability to be able to get to medical appointments, and the people that picked her up couldn't find her. And so I did the app, put it on, used the city app and asked for it to be repaired. One thing leads to another. A month later, it hadn't been repaired. I made a phone call, and then I ended up going to the street department, to their office and talking to them. That didn't work, and so I posted the incident on Facebook. Then what happens is my employer gets a phone call from Nate Salazar in the mayor's office, who's his title is Director of Community Empowerment. And so I called Nate afterwards. I said, how is it that you're going to call my boss about a personal issue? And at that, you falsified what my motives and what I said. And I told him he owed me an apology. He said that I'm not getting one, that I could call the city's attorney's office if I had a problem. So I did a grammar request to find out what the conversation was in the mayor's office. I find out that the director of streets and other people, they go find out where I work to call my boss. So my concern is, and I have a letter here that I'll leave, but I've, have heard recently from other people, I'm not the only one that this has happened to. So I'm just asking that the city council look into this. This just, and I actually did a grammar request, by the way, just got the results a couple weeks ago. I asked for a copy of the Citizen Code of Conduct for Appropriate Public Behavior that was passed by this council. And they denied it. They said there wasn't such a document. So my point is, I wouldn't think that you guys would ever pass such a document. But if you did, then it would be good for citizens to know about it. So my point is this, that if the mayor's office has such a code, we need to know about it. If they don't have a code, then we shouldn't be having consequences of trying to get people fired from their job for participating in public square. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clara. Lisa Hazel, followed by Dave Iltis.
Hello again, council. I am wanting to speak on, in terms of the streetlights that are being replaced in Salt Lake City. I am going to school right now to be a chemist, and so I am studying about, right now we are discussing intensity and wavelength, and this relates directly to streetlights, because since the streetlights are now much more intense than they used to be, on a graph, the y-axis would have intensity and the x-axis would have wavelength. Well, the streetlights used to be sodium-based, and the intensity was very low, and they were, I liked them a lot better. I'm very upset about them, actually, because all light, no matter what it is, it doesn't matter if it's infrared, visible, UV, gamma rays, whatever, when you increase the intensity, it's bad for people, and you're going to start getting health effects, and something's going to start happening. I don't know when, I don't know how long it's going to be, but something is going to happen. And the AMA came out against these new streetlights. I am completely against them. They hurt my eyes. We have two right next to our house, and Laura Briefer said that there would not be any LED lights in the avenues, and we have two now right by our house. So that's not very friendly. And the other thing is, Laura Briefer is there to defend the public health, and I do not feel like she is taking into consideration deer, insects, everything that can't vote. And it's not just me and people, it's animals too. They can't vote, but we should be concerned about them as well. And we should also, well, I think that the council needs to investigate next door.
Thank you, Ms. Hazel.
And I also think that sodium bulbs should be used again. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Iltis is the last card that I have. If there's anybody else interested in speaking, let me know. Mr. Iltis.
Hi. I also want to speak on the LED streetlights. I've been trying for over a year now to get any action, any change, anything other than platitudes, nonsense, falsehoods out of Salt Lake City. The lights are going in fairly rapidly throughout the city. There is absolutely no plan in place. You have no plan. Salt Lake City has no streetlight plan at all. The last plan you have is from 2005, before the invention of LED streetlights. The lights are bad for insects, bad for people, bad for wildlife, bad for sleep. They are, for many people, too bright in terms of driving. They blind people. They do have benefits in terms of lower energy use, but that only happens when you swap intensity for intensity, the same amount of lumens, but the new lights are much brighter, so the benefit to switching to LED lights is minimized in terms of energy consumption by going to a brighter light, which uses more watts. Yes, they are more efficient, and the argument isn't against LED streetlights, it's for choosing the proper lights for the proper place, and this is absolutely not happening. I've addressed several of the council via email. There's no action. I've addressed the mayor's chief of staff. There's been no action. I've met with public utilities who I learned later were meeting with me to humor me. I'm not humored very easily on something like that. There needs to be standards, going in. This isn't rocket science, but no one is paying attention to this, and the person that's overseeing the streetlight program is one person who is overworked. There is absolutely zero leadership in public utilities on this, none whatsoever. The people that I met with who were the second in command and a little bit farther down had absolutely no idea what they were talking about in terms of streetlights. And so I'm asking that please put a halt to this immediately.
Time.
And reassess the program and figure out a good program for Salt Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Iltis. I don't see any other, there is someone else interested in speaking. Okay. Sir? Oh, sorry. Sir, if you could come up, and then after you're finished speaking, just fill out a card so that we have the record. Thank you, sir.
My name is Rod Miller. I'm a longtime resident of the city, and one of my interests is air quality. And it doesn't seem, that anybody is, looking at what's the most obvious solution or a partial solution, which is lowering the speed limits on the freeway so that we get more miles per gallon and less pollutants in the air. And if the city, in a unified voice, would, recommend that and voice that concern and a solution, it perhaps could happen. And safety would be a byproduct on the freeways as well. And instead of getting 20 miles the gallon, people would get 30 miles the gallon should the speed limit be lowered. And that's an issue that I'd like to hear voiced, so that the city, in a unified way, can maybe affect, policy in that regard. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate them. If there is, I don't see anybody else here to speak, so we'll move to item E on our agenda under new business. We have wastewater reclamation facility local limits for a number of pollutants.
Mr. Chair, I move the council adopt a resolution approving the updated local limits that shall serve as the new local limits for Salt Lake City.
Great. Motion by Councilmember Mendenhall.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Johnston. Any discussion to this? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion passes unanimously. We are on to our final item, which is the consent agenda. I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, just
Yes.
before you guys make a motion, number 5 on the consent agenda was not interviewed tonight, so if you could make a motion removing number 5, that would be great.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move we, I'm losing the word right now. Approve the consent agenda with the exception of item number 5, the Transportation Advisory Board appointment of Alan Gallegos that'll be done at a future time, I believe.
Great. Motion by Councilmember Johnston, second by Councilmember Fowler. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And the consent agenda is approved, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.